Hey everyone, thank you for coming to my Ed Talk. This is edition number 5. I'm going to be taking some time and answering viewer questions, which I've got right in front of me here. So that's all that I have to do to take some time and watch the stream. And before I get into viewer questions, I am also going to be taking some time and talking about this impeachment thing that happened this past week. I've already been starting to take the time and read about all of this because of the fact that I want to make a solo video on this. And in fact, I actually probably would already have the solo video done, except for the fact that this is my 5th live stream of the week. Excuse me. This is my 5th live stream of the week. I did my regular show with John, and then I went ahead and did a show with Stephen Ignoramus, and I was on the generational gap again. I guess this is my 4th one, not my 5th one, but regardless, this has been a busy week, and I wound up getting myself hurt on Friday morning. I had a slip and fall in front of my truck while I was clearing it off because we have found winter here in Wisconsin. It's a glorious thing. I do love winter, but every once in a while an accident happens, and I twisted my ankle up pretty badly. Spent most of my night last night sleeping just to try and get that healing power going, and it's going good. I'm starting to be able to walk normally again. It was a pretty bad twist. I was actually afraid it was going to wind up being a sprain, but it wound up just being a twist. My limp is just about gone at this point, so everything's going to be okay on that front. I do love this time of year, and it's not even just the snow. A lot of people were complaining about the snow. Oh, looks like I've got a Discord message. I wonder who's doing that. Ignoramus is on. Did he just go on the same time I did? He did go on the same time I did. God damn it. I'm going to have to call him out on that. And I think he's testing his internet because he just got a new one installed. So I think he's just doing a test right now. I know he had a goal of getting to a certain point while he was before the end of the year. He was supposed to get to a certain number of episodes. I don't know if he made it or not. I'm gonna have to check in on that. If you're watching this right now, go ahead and hit the live chat here. Oh, no, I am not taking callers on Discord right now. I don't know how to do that. I don't really have the setup for a call-in show. I'm just taking chat messages out of the live chat right now and questions on there. That is something I do want to do to the future is start doing a call-in show. I think now Steven can do this on his own. Everybody should go over and check out Steven's live streams while he's going on there. I think he heard me call him out. He said sorry to do a test stream at the same time as you. Yeah, I just saw the live announcement over on Discord. I'm like, oh man, come on. No, I don't have the functionality to be able to do the live streaming and the call-in show yet, and I do want to have a co-host to do that. That may be coming down the pipes. I don't know. I'm about 50-50 on whether or not I'm going to have a co-host. I have someone picked out. It's just a matter of whether or not that person is able to manage to do that in her career at right now. So that's something that we're going to be able to look at coming down the pipes. It's going to be a rebranding of my podcast at that point. The name will change because it's going to be half that person's show and not just my show. So that's coming down the pipes. I was going up on why I love this time of year. Now, I just went over to the local Quick Trip and grabbed a quart of eggnog because I love eggnog. I'm crazy about it. I'm not one of those people that actually sits back and drinks the eggnog. I use it as coffee creamer mostly. Well, let me rephrase that. I do drink the eggnog. I love to drink the eggnog. It is delicious, but I don't mix it down with rum. I don't like rum for first sake, but I don't much care for rum at all. So I don't mix it down that way, but I will warm it up and just drink it as is because it is delicious. So I got a quart of eggnog, and actually, I took a little nap here, so I got a little bit late to it, but I am going to go over at some point here and make a pot of coffee and throw the eggnog into there because it is the most delicious coffee creamer in the world. Now, you may say that you don't like eggnog, and try it in your coffee at some point. It is delicious. It thins it down to a point where you'll actually enjoy to drink it. It's not, that's one of the complaints that I hear from people is that it's so thick you can't drink it. Well, You throw it in the coffee, it'll give it that nice, you know, holiday kind of flavor here. Looks like I got a couple people on Facebook that are watching live right now. If you're watching this live on Facebook, throw something into the comments section because I want to see if I have functionality for comments. I've been saying that I haven't thus far, but I, if I can get more people commenting in from Facebook, watching this live and being able to take part in the conversation, that's something that I'm looking forward to. I do want to get more people in the conversation. Eventually, this is going to turn into an hour show of me just taking questions, and I'm not going to even need to have a topic coming into it. But for right now, I need to start on a topic, start talking about things, and then start taking questions as they start rolling in. Occasionally, though, yeah, that's the goal, is to get enough people in and chatting that I don't need to talk about a topic at all and just focus all my time on the audience. That's what I've always wanted to do with this show, this particular installment of my show, is give back to the audience and answer their questions. Some of them are going to have questions about politics. Some of them are going to have questions about food. Stephen Ignoramus once had a question about cars. And then he used it as a talking point when I was on his show. I think it was like a week later he used it as a talking point for that. Anyway, this time of year, we're going back. I picked up the eggnog because it is huge in calories and it is one of the most delicious things in the world. And my coffee is going to be blessed for probably the next 2 or 3 months, which is great. And then we've also got the option while we're going along with this. We've got Halloween is over, so we can guilt-free eat all the candy, even though none of us got edibles in our candy. We've all been promised edibles in our candy since we were in middle school, but none of us have ever got edibles in candy. I looked forward to that every year when I went trick-or-treating. I wanted to get, that stuff is expensive. You don't always know where you can buy it. Well, if people wanted to trick kids and get them hooked that badly, they knew where to buy it, so they could have laced it and put it right back in there, and then, you got to have the fun. I'm sure our parents would have killed us if they found out about all of this, but yeah, that's something that we could have done at the time. So you've got your guilt-free candy eating from Halloween. We're going into the Thanksgiving season, and we're going into hunting season up here in Wisconsin too. If you are in Wisconsin or you're traveling through and you're passing through, watch for deer right now because they are in rut and they are not thinking. The does are in heat, the bucks are in rut, and all the bucks can think of is one thing and one thing only. So they don't care about the car or truck that's barreling down the road at them right now. They're just looking for a doe, and they're dumb. They're not real bright the rest of the year, but they're really dumb right now. So don't mess up your car. You'll get hurt. You'll have to replace your car, and that's going to be the end of it. Then we go into Thanksgiving, which a few people outside of this community know that I went to culinary school for a while. I love to cook. I don't get to cook as often. I don't own currently, so there's a... No, what am I wearing? Oh, I'm wearing my Fallout shirt. Thanks, Harvey McLeod. Thanks for joining us here. I'm just kind of going in on why I love this part of the year before we talk impeachment and take on questions from the audience. So Thanksgiving's coming up. I love to cook, and I love to get into situations where I get to cook. The last couple of years for Thanksgiving, I've actually gone to family. I think last year I actually spent it alone because I was single. I had no place to go, and I had to work the next day, so I didn't really have a chance to go and travel around. I live in an area where I don't really have any family around. The closest family is an hour away, so I don't have a chance to go out for Thanksgiving as much because I usually have to be back at work the next morning. Regardless to that, though, I mean, we get a chance, we cook. And, even if I spend Thanksgiving alone, I cook myself a nice dinner for Thanksgiving. And I give thanks for the family because I know they would have loved to have me around, even though logistically it wasn't really a possibility at the time. So we get to have a nice meal, nice calorie-ridden meal, kind of put on a little bit of winter weight to try and get us through. Well, I'm sure people like Harvey actually don't really have a winter weight going on because it's really, really warm where she lives, and you're not going to necessarily need to get winter weight. You're not going to get a winter, so, I mean, in some of those states down there, you don't really even have an atmosphere, but don't worry, it's a dry heat. So then, yeah, you get done with your Thanksgiving dinner, you go get to have all kinds of It's 70 right about now. Okay. It is when I went to silence my phone because my weather app is right underneath the slider bar on my phone. It is 29 right now where I am in Wisconsin. So, yeah, 70. That's still summer weather for me. But it's still a dry heat. And 50s would still be summer weather for me. I went up, my ex's dad lives in just outside of Phoenix. We went up there to visit him, and that was in February. While we were down there one day, he kind of took us on a driving tour of Arizona, and one of the days we went up to the Grand Canyon, which was nice. We went up to the Grand Canyon, got to see it. It was my first time at a national park, at a national landmark like that, but we get out of his truck, and he just starts handing coats around to everybody, and I'm like, why do I need this? It's 53 degrees out in February. My body is used to it being 19 right now, so yeah. And this was on the top of the mountain. I know down in Phoenix proper it was 90, 100 the whole time we were there, but yeah, once we got up on the top of the mountain, 53 is still warm to me at that time of the year. So, regardless, yes, we go through, we get done with Thanksgiving, and we get this nice high calorie meal. And then we go on to Christmas, where it's family time. We get this nice high calorie meal. Food brings everyone together, and I love doing food. It's probably one of my favorite things. That's why I went to culinary school. That's why I actually wanted to open a restaurant at one point, was because of the fact that I love food and I love the togetherness that it gives you. When you get to cook for a great big group of people, you get this sense of togetherness, and everybody's gathering to eat your food, but they're also learning about each other, they're conversing, the social media is over. We're actually becoming a community again, and it's something we need to move towards. What we are moving towards in this country, though, now that I'm done on my rant about what I love about Thanksgiving and the fall and winter season here in Wisconsin and the country over proper, is we do have an impeachment that's now going on. It's not really an impeachment yet. We had a vote this past, it was Thursday morning. We had a vote. I actually woke up because I took a vacation day on Thursday, and I didn't plan this because of this. I'd actually planned it because I'm trying to burn up some vacation time right now before it resets in 7 days. So I took a vacation day, and while I was sleeping in a little bit, I was watching TV. I was watching YouTube actually, and I got the alert that the House of Representatives was live and doing their debates. So I went through and I watched this. I listened to some of the amendments to this that all got declined because Republicans wanted to change the House resolution, which, if you haven't read the full House resolution, I will put a link on my Twitter and I will put it in my Discord, which you can find linked in the description below. I'll put a link down to the actual text of the resolution. And now, this is not an impeachment. Now, I was watching Facebook. I've got some pretty TDS friends over on Facebook. For the most part, they leave my Twitter alone, but some of the people I grew up with, I grew up a Democrat, and some of them kept the name of it, even though the party has shifted so far left that you can't really stand to be around them anymore. But some of them kept the name because it was on principle, because they grew up in the world where I can't vote for a Republican no matter what. My parents are kind of like that a little bit. And they have developed the sense of Trump derangement syndrome that comes from the mainstream media. So when they saw the fact that Pelosi wanted to come down and actually have the vote this past week, and they thought that this was the impeachment vote, which I've been saying right from the beginning. From the beginning of all of this, when they said that this whole Ukraine thing was going to be the nail in the coffin and they were going to get the impeachment, I said, well, just vote on it then. Forget the inquiry. You had a 2-year investigation. Forget any sort of process or anything, because we all know how you're going to vote. But I know that they do have to have a case that they have to build so they can bring it over to the Senate and try and have a trial that is going to fail them. But regardless, so they've been actually doing some of the investigations. There are people that are out there. Harvey McLeod says, I watched an Instagram video that was titled Proof Trump is Racist, and it was a TDS hashtag. Was TDS actually the hashtag, or was it somebody just having TDS? Well, no, you can't really link me on Instagram. See if you can find that in a manner that's not Instagram, and I'd really be curious to see that. Or find me the if it's a public page, not just one of your friends. Actually, see if you can get me to the page over there so I can go and see this. Okay, it was an actual hashtag. I thought maybe it was somebody just having Trump derangement syndrome. I keep wanting to say system. I don't know why, but well, we all knew he was not racist when he went in. That was the problem with it. They are trying to paint somebody with a racist because they say that the R that's after the Republican's name actually stands for racism, but it doesn't, obviously. It's for Republican. But regardless, it's, yeah, all Republicans are supposed to be racist, and that's what it's supposed to be. And, now you've got this guy who is, legitimately built buildings from, or real estate from the projects on up into the high rises in Manhattan. He's brought anybody in. He doesn't care what color your skin is. All he cares about is what color your money is. And yet all they want to do is paint this guy as a racist. And I have yet to see any actual evidence about this. I've seen, there's been some things that they were able to reach back into the 70s and show some things, which in the 70s, I could see it a little bit. But again, you're trying to hold somebody in the 70s to today's standards. And in all honesty, I know he knows it's out there, but I think if you showed him at some point that, okay, you said this back in the 70s, he would probably look back and say, what the fuck was I thinking? These people's money spends just the same as everybody else's. But you're, in the point in time where you're just after the civil rights movement, and you've got a person who was born before the civil rights movement, and it was actually an adult before the civil rights movement. So, yeah, I mean, you're at a point where standards are just a little bit different. It's not necessarily okay, but once again, if you look back and you hold somebody from 1600 at today's standards, you are going to be absolutely shocked at what that person could get away with versus today. Let me look over at my Discord here. Okay, that was a direct message to me. That's awesome. All right, I will look at that after the stream. Maybe I could. No, I'm not going to bring it up because then I have to bring my whole Discord up and people get to see all the weird groups I'm in on Discord. But yeah, I'll look into this. Looks like I've got a link for that, so I might throw that on my Twitter as well, and let everybody else see what was on there. So anyway, yeah, no, he's not a racist. But they're going to try and paint him as such. But, they're not trying to get him on racism right now. They're trying to get him on the fact that he had a phone call with a foreign leader. Now, they keep saying that there's a quid pro quo to this, which I've listened to the call. Well, I've not listened to the call. There was an audio of the call, but I've read the transcript of the call. I understand the fact that it's not completely accurate, so it's just basically transcribed notes from a few different people that listened to the call, because every single phone call that comes out of the White House is listened to by 3 or 4 different people. It makes my head hurt how we got to this point, because if it was just some anonymous whistleblower out there, which we found out who the whistleblower was, and we weren't exactly surprised about the fact that the whistleblower was somebody who is an Obama holdover that's got ties to the Democrat Party. We all knew that was coming, regardless of which. I mean, if there was something that was actually wrong in this call, it would have come out way sooner, especially as leaky as this administration has been. I mean, you can't get away with anything in there. We would have heard about this the very next day, not 2 months later, where somebody was coaxed and coached into trying to find a way to do this so it makes the maximum amount of damage. And even still, I looked at the transcript. There's nothing impeachable in the transcript. Now, I'm not a Trump superfan. My biggest claim to liking Trump is the fact that he makes it okay for the common man to run. And I understand the fact that he is not the common man. Do not get me wrong and misquote me on saying that Trump is the common man, but he is a man who has no political experience whatsoever that was able to make it out to the highest office in the land on essentially his first try. The implications for a successful Trump presidency are part of the reason that we are seeing all of this going on right now. And that is the fact that the implications of a Trump presidency means that it's okay for the rest of us to go and run for any office. It's okay for those of us who have no political experience to go and primary any of our Democrat or even establishment Republican counterparts out there. So that's part of the reason that they're trying to get to this. Where was I going with that? Okay, yeah, I was explaining what we have in here. So I prefaced that by saying I'm not a Trump superfan. And the transcript of the call was not good. There was nothing good about what Trump said in that call. But the problem that they're going to have when they take this out to trial right now, if this is even what they're still trying to go on, I don't know what they're trying to go on right now because all of the hearings that they've had have been behind closed doors. And that's something that I think is going to be changing a bit from what I've read from the rules that have been laid forth for the impeachment inquiry. There's not something that'll pass reasonable doubt, especially given the fact that Republicans have a majority. And in order to get a conviction out of the Senate, you need to have a supermajority in the Senate. I don't think it's two-thirds. Two-thirds is a different part of the removal process. So what's going to happen now? Nancy Pelosi has tied the House of Representatives to impeachment. She can't just drop it as they're going along, which up until the middle of this week, I thought she was going to. I legitimately thought that Pelosi was going to just give up on this whole thing because there wasn't anything there. But I know she's had pressure from everybody in her party. I mean, at Tlaib's swearing in ceremony, not at her ceremony, but the party after she got voted in, she came right out and said, "We are going to impeach the motherfucker." You can't tell me this is an objective thing at this point. So it's something they've been trying to do, and this has been a matter of, some of the Soviet ideals of you bring me the man and I'll find you the crime, which scares the absolute pants off of me. The fact that they're going to get away with this and that's the other thing that honestly, we need this to happen. I really hate to say this right now, but we need this whole process to happen. The thing about the impeachment here, and I've been railing on this ever since Kavanaugh was sitting in the hot seat, getting tried by the Senate for something he had never been indicted for, is all of this that they are doing to government officials because they can't stand the fact that Trump made the presidency, the fact that this may change the political landscape of our country and this may make it okay for all of us to run, is that this is really putting our due process rights on a challenge. And I don't know if I want to live in a world where they can get away with all of this. Bring me the man and I will find you the crime. It's Soviet propaganda, and it's propaganda from our government, but it also we've got testimony from people in the Soviet Union that it actually happened. It may be more extreme. What we see this as may be more extreme than what actually happened, but that doesn't stop the fact that it actually happened. And now they went after Kavanaugh because they couldn't stand the fact that Trump was going to get 2 Supreme Court picks. They were beside themselves the fact that he was going to get 1. But Neil Gorsuch was replacing a conservative justice, which justices shouldn't have a conservative or liberal bias to begin with. But they didn't make so much of a big deal about Gorsuch given the fact that it wasn't going to shift anything in the court. But now they had Kavanaugh out there and they had to find they had to find something to get him out of there for, because Republicans had the majority out there, the simple majority that they needed in order to get somebody brought in. And that was something that was changed by Harry Reid. Now, the Democrats right now on Twitter are out there trying to tell us the fact that this was something that Mitch McConnell changed to get Gorsuch through. No, that is not what happened. Harry Reid did that to get Kagan through. Now, she did get past the supermajority, regardless of the fact that he had changed the nuclear option, but he didn't have the numbers where he actually thought it was going to get to the supermajority, so the nuclear option was actually invoked for Kagan. NPR is trying to tell us that it was invoked for Gorsuch, but it was invoked for Kagan. But regardless, McConnell had this simple majority in order to get Kavanaugh in. So, of course, everything that he had ever done in his life was brought forward. And whether you believe Blasey Ford or not, there was not any evidence out there to get past reasonable doubt to get a conviction against Brett Kavanaugh. I don't know what happened. Was that 82? Yeah, I hadn't even been born yet when that happened. So I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I can't make a judgment on there. And the evidence that was brought forward to this was insufficient to get any sort of conviction. And yet they were trying him as if he may have, or as if he had already been indicted. And we were really putting Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights into the crosshairs right now. And what we're seeing with Trump right now is really challenging the Fourth and Fifth Amendment as well. And that is a scary thing to think about, the fact that they can go ahead and put the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment on, or amendments rather, on hold, just based on the fact that a person is in government, and that person that's in government is somebody that they don't like. In complete and full honesty, this is most likely, given the makeup of the Senate, going to backfire on Democrats, and what they do with it afterwards is what's going to make or break this presidency, and it's what's going to make or break our chance to make our government go back to by the people and for the people. But in all honesty, I think it really needs to get done either way. Like I said, they started out even before the midterms, back before the House had a Democrat majority. There was already talk about doing whatever they could to get the president impeached. Now, yes, there were never Trumpers in the Republican-controlled House in 2016 and 2017, or rather 2017 and 2018, because, well, I guess they were Republican-controlled back in 2016 as well. But I mean, there were never Trumpers out there. There were people that didn't want to tie themselves to Trump, but all of them actually got voted out anyway. They got either primaried or voted out, and most of them were replaced by never Trump Democrats as well. But they didn't have the majority in the House to try and get the impeachment thing going, and they couldn't do anything. Now, they did try and throw some articles of impeachment out against the president while he was sitting in office, but for the most part, it didn't get any traction. But once again, we're looking back to the idea of, you bring me the man and I will find you the crime. I was looking the day after the president was elected, not when he was inaugurated, the day after he was elected. I was Googling I don't remember what I was Googling how to do, but as soon as I got how to in the Google bar, it said how to impeach the president. So this has been I would bet you this has been going back to the point where he started taking the lead across the country. That his opposition was so desperate to get him out of office that they are going to find legitimately anything they can find to try and get him out of office. And we've got Russian interference, we've got tax returns, we've got Stormy Daniels, we've got Ukraine, we've got racism. We've got all of these different charges out there. They've been trying desperately to get out there. Now, where am I going with this? You may be wondering at this point, because I keep going off on a tangent and another tangent and another tangent as I go. But we think about the fact that Trump is being tried, essentially. Well, he's not being tried right now, but they're trying to do anything that they can. That highly relevant and credible story. Oh, Stormy Daniels. Okay, I didn't see the comment above that. Yeah. Stormy. It went Russia, taxes, Stormy. That's legitimately, well, I think taxes and Russia kind of switch places here and there, but one of the things that I've noticed about this presidency as we've been going along, and it's not just the impeachment, but all the documents are out there. A lot of people in the country have failed to read a lot of the documents that we have that give us a how-to manual as to how to run our government and how to keep the government out of our lives, because that was the goal of the founders, was to keep the government out of our lives. We were never intended to have this much federal government in our lives. Now, we may have been able to have some of this much state in our lives, but that would vary on state to state. People would go to the states that had the sufficient amount of government that they felt comfortable with, and the federal government was only there in order to maintain interstate commerce, essentially. Make sure that states that are trading against each other were doing so fairly, and if there was a dispute somewhere, the federal government could step in and, excuse me, would step in and make sure that everything was done properly. Now, we're going back to a point where people are sitting down and reading some of these documents. There are a lot of people that are getting red pilled just based on the fact that they went into looking into these documents to try and figure out how to get rid of Trump and how to get somebody who had no government experience out of office. And they're realizing I've seen a lot of people that have turned libertarian just based on reading the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and other government documents. A lot of people have read the Federalist Papers for the first time. I will be honest, I'm one of those people that has read the Federalist Papers for the first time because Trump was elected. I had read the Constitution before, front to back, and I had read the Declaration of Independence before, front to back. I'd never read the Federalist Papers, and I would like to sit down and read the Anti-Federalist Papers as well, so I can see the other side of the argument that didn't necessarily win out, but still see what it was like for people that, kind of wanted to see a government the way that we're seeing it right now, and some of the flaws that we saw against all of that. By the way, I know that meal is really bad for you, but man, it tastes so good. Green Thunder Mio Energy. It's delicious. If you haven't tried it, and you can stand to have a little bit of artificial sweetener, have a little bit of artificial sweetener. So anyway, a lot of people are going through now and reading these documents in an attempt to go back and try and find a way to get the president out of office or try to illegitimize, is that the word? They're going back and reading these documents for the first time, and we are getting a crash course on how the government actually works and how things have changed. And I think people are starting to realize the fact that we're not working exactly the way that we were supposed to be. I know a lot of Trump detractors are out there saying that the presidency was never supposed to have this much power, in spite of the fact that they were all for the presidency having that much power when a Democrat was president, namely Barack Obama, or even, I don't know, Bill Clinton. That was before the internet, so that was before everybody had, well, the internet was there, but that was before the internet got big to the point where everybody had as loud of a voice as they had right now. But regardless, we're getting this massive education on how the government is supposed to work, and they're looking at everything that Trump does and trying to find something in the Constitution that goes against what it was that he said. I'm getting messages on Discord. Are people trying? Okay, no, they're not. I was going to say, I'm getting pings on Discord over here, so I don't know if... Okay, I see what it is. Looks like I had one person that went live on Twitch, and looks like Stephen Ignoramus is still trying to get his live streams going. So at some point here, we got to go over there and check his stuff out, because his stuff is... he had his internet crash. I rehosted his show on my channel, and the Generational Gap rehosted on their channel, so... Let's hope that he gets his internet up and going here at the end of that, because he really needs to start streaming again. I swear to God, when he was sitting over the little bit that we could have him on the Generational Gap Halloween stream, you could see him shaking because, he couldn't do his live streams. It's like an addiction for the guy. So, regardless, we're getting this crash course on how the government works. And there are a lot of Trump fans as well that did the same thing. They were looking at the documents for the first time when Obama was doing things that they didn't like to see whether or not it was legal. They were finding out that it was legal, or at least technically legal, or didn't have a law against it at the time. And, they were still railing against the guy, but we were getting sort of that crash course on how the government worked. But, it is 10 times what it is right now with Trump. Oh, boy, I'm offline. Okay. That's all catching up again. Okay. We're back here. Dropped some frames and I lost some viewers on Facebook, but regardless, we're getting this crash course in how the government works. I think a lot of people are starting to realize as well the fact that they can run for government, that you don't need to be primped and preened from birth to be in the government. I have thrown around going on to because this happened, I'm actually going to go ahead and reload the chat here, so bear with me for a half a second. Excuse me. just because I saw the fact that my numbers didn't match what was going on over here. Okay, we are back in the chat now. Anyway, we're getting this crash course on how the government works, but where I'm going back to where this needed to be done. Because whether or not the government needs to actually have somebody that knows what's. Let me rephrase that. Whether or not the government needs its people, its citizens, to know what's going on and know how it works is kind of irrelevant. We were never meant to have this much federal government in our lives to begin with. But, looks like DLive can't pick back up. It's okay, nobody was watching over on DLive anyway. What is going to come out of this, I think, is going to be either people knowing what the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment are based on what we're going to start seeing out of the. I'm going to kill that and see if I can get it to go again. No, I'm not going to restart my broadcast to apply the changes. I'm in the middle of something right now. So, regardless, let's go back to where I was going with here. So, the Fourth and Fifth Amendment aren't going to change. Jake from Freedom Scoop is here. He just left Steven's stream. Welcome in, Jake, if you have any questions for me. This is, I've babbled on long enough, so this is actually for the audience and not necessarily for for me to babble and ramble on about impeachment and the Fourth Amendment, but regardless. Also, I want to point out something here. I should have pointed out because I've got, looks like somebody chatting or watching regularly on Facebook. The number has kind of jostled between 1 and 2 throughout the entire stream here. If you're on Facebook, I don't know if I can get comments or anything off of this stream. So if you want to jump over to my YouTube channel, if you find my fan page over there, you can go in through there and find the link to my YouTube channel, or go on to twitch.tv/edsblog Twitter, or I don't have anything going on DLive right now, otherwise I'd send you over there as well. That way you can jump into the live chat and join the conversation here. I'd love to have you in on the conversation and answer your questions as you're watching along. Anyway, we're going back. I was talking about the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments and how that's going to change everything. Let me get OBS back up here. The Fourth and the Fifth Amendments have been under attack since Trump has been in office. And if this impeachment goes through, if the Democrats that are all giddy for the impeachment force this to go through before the election, and this gets kicked back out of the Senate, I do believe that there are going to be court cases that come up through, and because this is federal government officials, this goes straight to the Supreme Court no matter what. We are going to get Supreme Court decisions and definitions that talk about the fact that the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments are sacred, and you can't just go looking for a crime that somebody did because you don't like the person. That is one of the things that our founders tried to protect us against, was the fact that in England, do phone conversations and recording of them fall under the Fifth Amendment? They do, but the Patriot Act nullified that. So, and that goes back onto the idea that the Patriot Act was renewed, even though it's unconstitutional. And that's one of the problems that we have out of the government, is the fact that, yes, phone conversations and recording of them do fall under the Fifth Amendment. Now, this goes, again, to what Trump did when he was, starting out with this whole thing, because they said that the phone calls out there, they said that he had some nefarious quid pro quo conversation out there, and that he's going to try and hide this from the country forever. And then he just came out and he released a transcript. You can volunteer information. Why aren't all government conversations public domain? Because there is a classification that goes along with the government. Now, the government can classify information for, and this goes along to the military aspect of it, but also for the people that are gathering intelligence, which it's not necessarily military, but, and this, we're not necessarily really at war with anybody, but still there's intelligence out there where people's lives would be in danger if some of these things became public. You'll notice as well, you can file a FOIA act, and if you can get it through the courts, then what you filed Freedom of Information Act 2 becomes public domain. So you can make anything out there public domain, but there are classifications out there for the protection of people who are gathering intelligence. And I do agree with the fact that they can classify things to protect lives of people who are out there trying to serve our country. Now, I'm going to preface that by saying that I think there are way too many things out there that are classified that should not necessarily be classified. There are entirely too many things that are classified, and I don't think all of them involve intelligence gathering at this point. But given the fact that the president can classify and declassify whatever he wants to classify and declassify as he goes, that means that they can hide things under the idea of classification and they'll never get out to the public. The public will never know about them. I don't know if that answers your question or not, or if I went off onto a completely different tangent at this point, but yeah, it's the government can classify and declassify whatever they want to. Steven is over here. Hey, Steven, welcome onto my ad talk. So, if I had to guess, because I can see that I've got 3 people on the stream right now, I've got Jake, I've got Steven, and possibly Harvey's still watching, but not commenting right now. So, welcome everybody on in. I was just going over the impeachment thing and why I think that this is going to be important for the American people and why this could tremendously backfire on the Democrats. Because especially if we get to the Supreme Court right now and start defining the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment more than they're already inherently defined, if we start actually getting court cases that go along with these things and precedents that we can now cite to protect the American people. Oh, you tossed a Twitter link out. Oh, that'll be good. I'm probably only going to be going for probably another 15 minutes, but I mean, if we get more questions in at this point for the next 15 minutes, that's always good as well. If anybody wants to throw my Twitch link out, I know Harvey knows what my Twitch name is, but if you want to throw my Twitch link out there, I'd like to get some more people in on over there as well, or maybe a host from one of you 2 lovely people who are on Twitch right now as well, if you know how to host. I know we talked about this on mic when I hosted Steven's show the other day. If you, I don't know, Steven, did you figure out how to host on Twitch or no? I don't know. Either way, just to get some more viewers in for the next 10-15 minutes, that would be awesome of everybody. So anyway, we're going to get this out to the Supreme Court, and they're going to decide what is protected by the Fourth Amendment. Your landlord thinks the orange man is on his last leg. Did he have any specific examples out of all of that, or is it just an orange man bad talking about? Because you're in a pretty liberal area. From what I'm not going to dox you, obviously. I know you do it on your own channel, so if you want to volunteer that, that's on you. But I'm not going to do it. But I know you live in a pretty liberal area, so is this just Trump derangement syndrome, like Harvey was talking about earlier, or is this actually like he's actually got some reasoning behind this? Because honestly, you are in DC, okay. I didn't want to say it, but yes. Yes, Steven is in DC. Did your new neighborhood get any better, or is it just about the same? Anyway, we'll get this out to the Supreme Court, and, we'll get a decision on what's protected by the Fourth Amendment, what's not protected by the Fourth Amendment, and what TDS is an STD. Well, it's an anagram's STD, anyway. We'll get some definitions on all of this, and, people aren't going to be able to go after people. Maybe this will dismantle the Patriot Act. Wouldn't that be a glorious thing right now if Fourth and Fifth Amendment went before the Supreme Court for definition, and suddenly we find out that the Patriot Act, even though it's been enshrined by 2 Congresses, is completely unconstitutional. There's a case that I think we need to have made here. Now, I'm going to get a little bit tinfoil here when I look at this, because every time I look around this presidency and everything that's happened over the last 3 years, one of the first things that I always think about is the fact that Barack Obama said that he was going to have the most transparent presidency in history. And in fact, he didn't. And it wasn't necessarily on Barack Obama. I know a lot of people like to call Barack the father of every single lie and ill in this country, but he wasn't. He had some problems, and he didn't have any sort of a transparent presidency, but he had a media that ran cover for him as well. So I don't know how much of this was advisors in the media working together to try and block out the information that might be damning to him, or how much of it was actually Barack himself. And we'll never know that as well, because those are conversations that we're not going to be privy to for another 20 years when any classification expires at this point. But Trump is kept. Now, I keep hearing the pundits out there, Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, Shapiro, Knowles, keep saying the fact that Trump should have gone through and fired all of the holdovers out there. The problem isn't the government spying on Americans, it's using that information against its citizens is the problem. That is 100% incorrect. The problem is the government spying on Americans. The problem will always be that the government is spying on Americans, because they have no business going in there and spying. Unless you have a warrant, the government has no business spying on Americans whatsoever. The Patriot Act is a load of bullshit, and it has enabled the government to come through and spy on Americans. And it's the first thing that we need to get rid of the next time it comes up for a renewal. No, no, that is 100% wrong. The government does not need to be spying on American citizens. Whether or not they use the information against its citizens is regardless at this point. No. Get the government out of our backyard. Get them out of our phone conversations. Yeah, I mean, the government is watching this, but hi, government. But I'm also putting it out there publicly. No. Would I say on the phone to Jake, if I were to talk on the phone with Jake, would I say on the phone with my family? This view that the government has no business spying on Americans comes from a particular ideological framework that the government works for citizens as opposed to owning citizens. Well, and that's a part of it too. I remember when Elijah Cummings died, I had a brief exchange on Twitter over the fact that people called Elijah Cummings a leader, and he was a leader of Baltimore. He was not a leader. He was a representative. He was not put into place to lead. The president isn't even put into place to lead. And I don't understand how we got to the point where we consider the president a leader. No. Elijah Cummings was not a leader of Baltimore. He was an employee of the people of Baltimore who elected him in order to represent their interests to the federal government, so that the federal government could rule on interstate commerce between Virginia, Maryland, and potentially Delaware, Rhode Island, or anything else. Has anybody ever met anybody from Delaware, by the way? There are days that I wonder whether or not Delaware exists. I've never met anybody from there. I have seen license plates from there, but I've never actually met anybody from Delaware. Regardless, Elijah Cummings' job was to make sure that the federal government treated the commerce that went between Maryland and specifically the District of Maryland and other states in the country fairly. We are ruled by the government, not the other way around, no matter what lies we choose to believe about our democratic republic. Never met anybody from Delaware either. There's not actually anyone who lives in Delaware. Well, that actually reminds me of a joke that I heard when I was in middle school. And we were from the north, from a small farming community in northern Wisconsin, but we got some wacky books here. Bad grammar. Oh, yeah, Jake was calling himself out. I understand the fact that, we weren't south of the Mason-Dixon line, but we got some good, interesting literature in our middle school library. My brother found an interesting book in the library, especially given our geographic location. It was just a little joke book. It said, How to Love Yankees with a Clean Conscience. One of the jokes, because we're going back to, places where we don't believe anybody lives. One of the jokes that I found in the book, because I read it after he did, was loving Yankees with a clean conscience involves understanding the fact that nobody actually lives in New York City. Everyone just goes to work there. And I thought that was kind of funny. I've never been to New York City. I don't know if anybody actually lives in that city either. I don't know if it's true if people just go to work there, but it's still funny anyway because yeah, it's you get into the cities, especially back at the time, it was just a lot of people were moving out to the suburbs and there were fewer and fewer people living in the inner cities, but yeah, I'm sure there are people that live in New York City, but it's still a funny idea. And maybe we do have to accept the fact that there's actually nobody that lives in Delaware, and all the plates that we see from Delaware are just for company cars, and nobody lives there. Everybody just goes to work there. We are ruled by the government, not the other way around, no matter what lies we choose to believe, our democratic republic. Yeah, that is something we actually need to end. I'm sorry to say that, but that's. I've been tossing around a run for Congress. I actually had all the paperwork filed for 2018 to run against Tammy Baldwin for the Senate in this state, but I didn't know where I was going to be living because I got all the paperwork filed for January of 2018. Actually, I had it done just the last days of December of 2017, but in January of 2018, my girlfriend decided that she needed to break up with me. We were cohabitating, and I didn't know where I was going to be living come election day. So it's kind of hard to run for yeah, it's hard to end it, but that's I'm going to go back to something I was saying here before April started watching the live stream, and I was talking about the fact that they're trying to get Trump out. The way hierarchy works in nature is one's at the top rule. To invert the reality and have those at the bottom of the hierarchy, what would you have to do? Well, I'm going to eugenically reprogram. No, we're not doing eugenics, and I disavow that. What we are going to do, though, is if we're going to sit here and talk about, I'm going to reiterate something I said at the beginning of the show. Now, Trump came in, and almost immediately, as soon as he came in, they tried to get him out of office because he was somebody that came in, and I'm not a big Trump fan. Personally, I think he needs to turn his Twitter off and do some more with policy. Now, he's done some good things, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. Regardless, he came in off. No, this is don't be sorry for talking about off-topic stuff. This is a fan show. Ed Talk is always about answering as many fan questions as I can. So, going back to what I was saying, Trump came in essentially what was his first try. He's been tossing around since the 80s, but on his first try, he came in and he won the presidency. So now it's okay for people like you and I to go in and either run outright for all of our offices or primary the people that are establishment types, but regardless have been there forever. If they're in our own parties, we can go in there and try and primary them and make this a government by the people, for the people. And that's a threatening idea to the way that the hierarchy works, like you were saying. I mean, what would happen if we started getting, like if we actually went in and lowered the bar for people to be able to get in and run for office? Because the bar is set extremely high right now. And I know this for the fact that I'm actually somebody who's filled out the paperwork and tried to run for office. The bar to run for public office is tremendously high, and it's higher than it ever needs to be. So, if we lowered the bar for this and we started getting 17, 18, 20 people running for a local Senate seat, for whatever reason, or a local House seat, or a mayor's seat, or a governor's seat, or a state rep seat, if we started getting people to come in and running against these people who have been there forever, or people who have been primped and preened from birth to do this kind of stuff, because that definitely happens. People are, rich families go out there and they look at their kids in the cradle and say, this kid's going to be a senator. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to get him through law school. I'm going to get him into the Senate. I'm going to get him into the Supreme Court. I'm going to get him to this office, to that office. And then to have somebody like me, who sells car parts, to go in and primary somebody like that and possibly win because I'm actually one of the people. Is daylight savings time constitutional? Yes, daylight savings time is constitutional because states have decided whether or not they're going to participate in there. Arizona does not participate in daylight savings time. Half of the year it's in Pacific time, and half the Wyatt's here. Wyatt, I'm going to be winding down the live stream here in a bit, but if you have any questions, get them out there. Um, yeah, half the time Arizona is in Pacific time, and half of the time it's in Mountain time because they don't observe daylight savings time. And I guess they're close enough to the line that they could, but yeah, no. They don't have daylight savings time at all. It's constitutional because the states get to decide. It's one of those 10th Amendment things. Anything that's not laid out in the Constitution in the articles or the amendments that preceded the 10th Amendment shall be relegated to the states. It's the way our government was supposed to work. I don't know how we got to this point. Well, I do know how we got to this point. A lot of that came right around the time of World War I, where we started seeing all of this happen, but yeah, no. You shouldn't have to turn to D.C. if you want a law made or a law repealed, or if you want to protest a law. You should be able to go to your state house. I should be able to go to Madison and deal with all of this. A lot of and it's the same thing too. It's like the First Amendment. Let's look at that here for a sec. I know we're going to be winding down here in just a bit, but let's look at the my last solo video, the bitch bill out of Boston. That is a state law that's coming out of the state house, the state legislature in Massachusetts. And there are a lot of people from the surround. Now, when I first heard about this, I thought it was actually a city ordinance, but I looked deeper into it, and it's actually a state law that they're trying to pass. The New York one is a city ordinance, but it's a state law that they're trying to pass currently, trying to make it illegal to say the B word in a malicious intent. Now, the First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law regarding the freedom of speech, but they never said anything about the state. And this is one of the things I keep talking about when I say that laws should be done at a state level and the federal government should go back to interstate commerce and keeping a standing military. Because, yes, Massachusetts can pass a bill, or pass a law rather, that says, yes, it'll cost you $150 every time you look at somebody and say, "You bitch." And all the people that are going to be affected like that are going to move to New Hampshire or Vermont or Connecticut or Rhode Island. Maybe upstate New York, but probably not that. Upstate New York is way too conservative for those folks, but regardless. Oh, somebody's in the lobby checking mail. I heard it. You guys probably heard it on the microphone too. But either way, Massachusetts is going to pass a law that's actually within their state charter that they can pass. Well, they're not going to pass it. I think it's going to fail in the state house. But regardless, they're going to propose a law that's constitutional to propose. It'll go to their state charter, and it'll affect people negatively. And the people are going to vote with their feet in their pocketbooks, and they're going to take their tax money elsewhere. And then they're going to go to New Hampshire and realize what it's like to live without an income tax or a God, what is the other tax that they don't have there? Sales tax. That's it. They're going to figure out what it's like to live without an income tax and a sales tax, and they're going to get all kinds of excited, and they're just going to stay there. I have a feeling that Rhode Island would become quite popular if that passed too, as well. I don't know how people stay in that state either. I consider myself lucky to the fact that I didn't have to pay income tax in that state, but man, the sales tax out there is just ridiculous. I maintained a Wisconsin residency as a student while I lived in Massachusetts. So, essentially, I got refunded all of my Massachusetts state taxes and then turned around and paid state tax to Wisconsin as far as income tax went. But I got to dodge that bullet, and they've got I could see what was going on. Uh-oh. I just lost my live chat. Hold on a sec. Alright, I apologize for that. I lost my live chat there for a second. So, and that's kind of where I go with this. Like I say, it's all about interstate commerce. And it's like the law that California is trying to pass right now. April Hart is just listening. Well, thank you for listening anyway. I think I'm on my last point right now. California is right now trying to pass a law in which they will tax businesses and individuals that will leave California right now. It's still in the state house down there. I don't think it's going to pass. And if it passes, I think it's going to get challenged and become unconstitutional. That's another one that's going to bypass all the district courts. That's going to go straight to the Supreme Court. The law that they're trying to pass will tax people who are trying to move out of the state for the revenue. I think it's 10 years worth of revenue that the state would lose from taxes that they would get from that particular person. Because there's so much flight that's coming out of California right now, and they can't keep up. It's part of the reason, and California has a massive representation in the Congress as well. They are essentially ruling the country, at least through the House of Representatives. That's a crazy law. Yeah, that is. And it is. It's going through. I'll get a link and I'll put it in my. April, are you in my Discord or? I'll get a link either way, and I'll put it on my Twitter and I'll put it in my Discord. Just outlining what the laws are. They're trying to tax people to go out of there because they're losing money out of this. They can't pay their bills as it is, and now all these. Yeah, I'll put a link in my Discord. I'll look that up. So they want to tax the people that go out to places like Montana and Wyoming looking for a lower tax rate to try and recoup some of the losses that they have while they continue to try and advertise to get more people to move in and try and become actors and fail. They're trying to prevent the flight like what we would see in Massachusetts if that law that they're trying to pass through actually happens to pass. So that's where I think that is where I'm going to leave it here because I got like 5 minutes. Well, yeah, I got 5 minutes left here, and then I will have the 60 minutes. What is this? Well, actually, OBS says I've been going for an hour too, but regardless. Yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it then. So, yeah, Trump being impeached right now is going to give us a good court case, I think. You live in California, and usually the local conservative radio talks about laws like this, but I haven't been listening to radio much lately. This is great ammo for red pilling people. Yeah, that is. It's a largely Democrat supermajority controlled state that realizes that their laws aren't working for the majority of people, and they're trying to find a way to keep the money for as long as they can to keep themselves going. And it's number one, it's unconstitutional. As soon as somebody moves out of California and has to start paying that tax, that does become interstate commerce at that point. And that would be illegal for California to tax the resident of another state on a state level. So, I don't know. That's going to be it. I am going to be doing a solo video talking about. I'm actually going to outline the resolution that the House passed. I've got some links to that as well. I'm going to put the link to the resolution in my Discord. I'm going to put the link to the California bill. I'm going to put that in my Discord. I'll put the link to the resolution on Twitter as well. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to, I don't know, probably Monday I'll have a chance to sit down and do a solo video. I know I would usually be done with this by this point, at least recorded and finishing up my editing right now, but because of all the live streams that I was on this week, I've not had a chance to get around that. But I want to dispel some of the myth about the resolution and confirm what some of the truth is about that. So look for that solo video out there. I will be hosting Seawall, my friend Seawall from the Deplorable Batcave will be on Ed's World coming up on Monday. That will be at 6:30 Central Time. So go ahead and check that out. Get some live questions in for Seawall and I. He's protective of his identity. He always has a uniform on when he's in there. So get in there and check that out. And check out his recent appearance on my show as well from back when I was still pre-recording everything. He's a good conversation. He's a really knowledgeable guy, and I've known him for a while. He's been friends with me for a while, and I always value his input. So go ahead and check that out coming up on Monday. Go back if you want to. I'll get some links out there. Check out my live streams on the daily, or not the Daily Ignoramus, but Call Me Ignorant, which I wound up hosting myself, and the Generational Gap wound up hosting because Steven's internet at the time was not doing so well. So go over ahead and check that out. I'll get some links in the Discord for that and over on Twitter as well. And my appearance on the Generational Gap for their Halloween charity stream. That was a crazy night, and that ended in probably one of the craziest ways I've ever seen. I still can't believe we got to that point, but go over there and check that out as well. There are links in the description below. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. You can find some of my old written articles. You can find the website that I edit, freedomscoop.com. You can go down and check that out. Check out our merch store over there. If you're not already in my Discord, there is a link down in the description as well. Go ahead and check that out. And if you don't want to catch me on YouTube, you can go ahead and you can catch me on Twitch, DLive. If you know me personally, I can't go to my fan page on Facebook, which is linked in the description below, but you can check me out on Facebook as well. I live stream over there, and you can catch me right on Twitter. As we always say on this show, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions, and thank you for coming to my Ed Talk. Take care.